Okay, we'll call the meeting to order at 10 o'clock. Would you have the prayer for Mrs. Clary, please?
Dear Father, thank you so much for our department heads and our not coming up in the county. We have that are getting pink slips. Had a lot to do, and we know we had.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everybody. In case of an emergency or fire and a call is made to evacuate the building, need assistance, please ask. Outside the building, move to a safe location. Please silence your cell phone. Thank you.
I'd like to remind everybody, we've been having trouble with the transcription because you aren't using your mic. If you're talking and your red light isn't lit up, you're not being recorded. So make sure that you're leaning into the mic and the light's on when you're talking. Roll call, please.
Mr. Hanky.
Here.
Mrs. Pedler.
Here.
Mr. Ferguson.
Here.
Mr. Shaw.
Here.
Mr. Hall.
Here.
Mr. Fisher. Mr. Baker.
Here.
Mr. Nolan.
Here.
Mr. O'Brien.
Here.
Mr. Hahn.
Here.
Mr. Campbell.
Here.
Mr. Skelly.
Here.
Mr. Hogan. Mr. Wilson.
Here.
Mrs. Clary.
Here.
Mr. Wang.
Here.
Mr. Rozell.
Here.
Couple of minutes before I can open the public hearing, so let's move on to the condensed minutes. You've got in your packet the condensed minutes from July 21st, 2024. I'm going to consider them accepted as mailed unless there are any corrections or deletions. Are there any corrections or deletions? Accepted as mailed. How about communications?
For communications, Assemblyman Simpson acknowledged receipt of our resolution number 184, urging local, federal, and state government representatives to advocate for increased funding levels for older adults in the federal and state budgets. And for Warren County, we are in receipt of their resolutions, number 202, amending Resolution 23 of 2024 to appoint members to the Warren Washington County's Industrial Development Agency and Civic Development Corporation to fill a vacancy due to a resignation. Number 203, authorizing a 5-year master internship affiliation agreement with Adirondack Community College. And number 215, introducing tentative operating budget for Adirondack Community College fiscal year 24-25 and providing for public hearing. That's all I have for communications.
Well, the committee reports, audit committee.
Chairman, I'd like to move the audit report to the main board for total paying of $5,781,798.75.
Moved by Supervisor Rozell. Is there a second? Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, Baker, O'Brien, Hahn, Larry, Wang, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Okay, now we're 10:05 when we're supposed to be, so we'll open the public hearing on Adirondack Community College 2024-25 budget. Clerk, read the notice, please.
Notice of public hearing on Adirondack Community College budget. Notice is hereby given that the Board of Supervisors of the County of Washington will hold a public hearing in the Supervisors Chambers, Washington County Municipal Center, Building B, 383 Broadway, Fort Edward, New York, on the 19th day of July, 2024 at 10:05 a.m. for the purpose of hearing testimony in favor or opposed to the 2024-2025 Adirondack Community College budget for the academic year beginning September 1, 2024.
I will declare this public meeting and public hearing open. Ask for any public comment on the SUNY budget. Anyone with comment on the community college budget for this year? Is there any public comment on the community college? All 3 times for public comment, and hear none, I will declare the public hearing closed at 10:06. And also at 10:06, I'll declare the public hearing for the Community Development Block Grant application open and ask the clerk to read this notice.
Legal notice of public hearing. The Washington County Board of Supervisors will hold a public hearing on July 19th, 2024 at 10:05 a.m. in the Board of Supervisors Chambers, Washington County Municipal Center, Building B, 383 Broadway, Fort Edward, New York, for the purpose of hearing public comments on the Washington County's community development needs and to discuss the possible submission of 1 or more community development block grant applications for the 2024 program year. The CDBG program is administered by the New York State Office of Community Renewal and will make available to eligible local governments approximately $100 million for the 2024 program year for housing, economic development, public facilities, public infrastructure, and planning activities with the principal purpose of benefiting low to moderate income persons. Additionally, up to $10 million of this funding is available to support the vacant property clearance program. Washington County is applying for up to $2 million in CDBG funds for housing or vacant property activities. The hearing will provide further information about the CDBG program and will allow for citizen participation in the development of any proposed grant applications and/or provide technical assistance to develop alternate proposals.
Now, before I call for any public comment, I'm going to ask Laura to come forward and flesh that out a little bit, give us a few more details on it. This is unusual public hearing.
So as most of you know, we frequently apply for community development block grant funding for a variety of purposes. We've used it for the sewer district, we've used it for housing programs, et cetera. There are a variety of deadlines for different programs. Most of the CDBG deadlines are July 31st. We will not be applying for any of those, but I want to let you know what is still open and available through the rest of the year. Housing programs, which include the home program, the mobile and manufactured housing replacement, access to home for Medicaid, and access to home for veterans and heroes is still open through the end of August. The vacant rental improvement program, which is a new program for CDBG, is open until October. The vacant property clearance program, which is what we had discussed at Ag Planning, is open through the end of the year. And then they're also always available through open round economic development projects. So there has not been a final decision made as to whether we are going to apply for any of these, but if we do decide to pursue the vacant property clearance program or any of the other open programs, we're required to hold a hearing. So that's the purpose of today's meeting.
Any public comment? Or you come in if you want, come up to the mic. You have to come up. Yes, you're the only one that moves, so.
I come up there.
Yes, up to the mic.
I'm a resident of Washington County and of the town of Argyle. And I am working with an organization in Argyle that is looking at how we can improve the town to make it, to improve the quality of life of the residents there. And one of the main problems that we've identified are vacant buildings in our town. And I, drive through Washington County and I see vacant buildings in all our towns probably that are in the main street, are economic depressants on the town's prosperity, are just a blight on the community, could be used for a lot of different activities that would be beneficial to the residents, could be commercial space or recreational space or housing. And so I am excited that the county is considering applying for a grant opportunity to address that. Also, I think about, historic preservation of some of the buildings that are derelict. There's lots of reasons, I guess, to try to address vacant buildings in our town. In Argyle in particular, one of the major issues is with a empty former IGA building that's right at the main intersection. It's just, there's such potential there that's going unutilized. So to be able to address that and have some money available. I also think that for a small town like Argyle, and I think it's true of many of our towns in the county, these grants are very complex and they're very complex to administer. So I think that doing that at the county level where there's more capacity, more resources available is exciting to me. And I just have a couple of questions as well. One of them is how can a town get a list of vacant properties in the town? Is that something that could be made available to organizations such as the one I'm working with? And also just what is the need for affordable housing in the county as a whole? So again, using that vacant space to house a family or to provide apartment space for people would be just so much more useful and conducive of quality of life. So, said my piece. Thank you. Robin Lyle.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Anyone else who wishes to be heard on this topic? Is there anyone else who wishes to talk in the Community Development Block Grant Application Public Hearing? Having asked for further comment 3 times and heard none, I'll declare the public hearing closed at 10:13. Move on to, excuse me, introduction of local laws. We have 2, if the clerk would read the titles, please.
Introductory Local Law C of 2024, introduced by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan. A local law providing for repayment plans to cure tax delinquencies. Introductory Local Law D of 2024 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan. A local law to enact an occupancy tax is authorized by act of the New York State Legislature, Chapter 102 of the laws of 2009. That was local law.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
We get them both.
Yeah.
Okay. Any supervisor's privilege of the floor? We'll move on to the excuse me, consideration of resolution.
Resolution number 216 by Supervisors Campbell, Skelly, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Wilson, Fisher, titled to adopt Adirondack Community College budget.
Chairman, moving resolution number 216.
Supervisor Campbell, second. Ferguson. Hall, O'Brien, Hahn, Wilson, Clary, and Noland. Discussion. This roll call.
Mr. Hanky,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler. Yes. Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
No.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly, Mr. Hogan, Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary,
Yes.
Mr. Wang,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell. Resolution is adopted, 3,130 yes, 1,078 no, and 482 absent. Resolution number 217 by Supervisors Nolan, Hall, Ferguson, Baker, Hahn. Title, Approve Tri-County Workforce Development Board Budget for Program Year 24.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution number 217.
Moved by Supervisor Nolan, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, Baker, O'Brien, Hahn, Wilson. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 218 by Supervisors Wilson, Skelly, Fedler, Shaw, Ferguson, Rozell, Fisher, Baker, Wang. Title, Resolution of the Board of Supervisors of Washington County classifying proposed project and seeking lead agency status by the Board of Supervisors of Washington County pursuant to the State Environmental Quality Review Act relative to the proposed project for the construction of a septic receiving station and sludge dryer at the Washington County Sewer District Number 2 facility, including obtaining original furnishings, equipment, machinery, and apparatus in the Village of Fort Edward, Washington County, New York.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 220.
Moved by Supervisor Wilson, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, Baker, O'Brien, Clary, Wang, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 219 by Supervisors Hall, Campbell, Skelly, Nolan. Title, Amend Staffing Pattern, Public Health, Children with Special Needs for Temporary EI Program Coordinator.
Moving resolution 219.
Moved by Supervisor. Hall, O'Brien, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 220 by Supervisors Wilson, Skelly, Fedler, Shaw, Ferguson, Rozell, Fisher, Baker, Wang. Title, to approve change order, Washington County Sewer District Phase 2 project.
Mr. Chairman, moving resolution 220.
Supervisor Wilson, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Baker, O'Brien, Wang, and Nolan. Discussion.
Chairman, I was late getting my
Mr.
hand
Hall.
up. I apologize.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 221 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Hall, Nolan. Title, to set public hearing on introductory local law C of 2024.
Moving resolution number 221.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Wilson, Clary, and Nolan. Is there discussion? I don't have to pass a local law. That's my discussion. Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 222 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Hall, Nolan. Title, to set public hearing on introductory local law D of 2024.
Moving resolution number 222.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Hall, O'Brien, Skelly, Wilson, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 223 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Hall, Nolan. Title, Amend Budget, Buildings and Grounds for Furniture and Probation.
Moving resolution number 223.
Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 224 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Rozell, Hall, Nolan. Title, Amend Budget, Capital Project Number H125 for Burgoyne Avenue Remodel Engineering.
Moving resolution number 224.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 225 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan, title amend budget, public health for preparedness grant.
Moving resolution number 225.
By Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Clary, and Noland. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 226 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan, title to amend capital project number 131, Banton Dugan Bridge.
Moving resolution number 226.
By Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Wilson, Clary, and Noland. Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 227 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan, title amend 2024 budget to fund opioid settlement recommendations.
Resolution number 227, moving that.
Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Clary, and Noland. I understand there's an amendment to this.
I have a copy of it, and I'd like to amend it so that all purchasing coordinators approve the purchase of the coroner toxicology instrument from Randex Toxicology as a sole.
Amendment moved by Supervisor Campbell. Is there a second? Pedler, Hall, O'Brien, Hahn, Wilson, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion on the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Moving to the original motion as amended. The discussion. Ms. Clary.
I was thankful for the discussion we had at the finance. At first, I was opposed because I feel like the settlement money should go towards the living rather than the dead. And there's great need out there in overdoses. And after the coroner talked with us, we found out that families have been waiting, I think 2020 for overdoses that are still waiting for autopsy reports. So those death certificates, they're waiting for care and recognition to move forward. And so it changed my decision on this because I think this is something that help our local communities to get through these overdose. Have the sheriff had the information he needs to, where if it is a lethal type of drug that is a pandemic type of drug, he can put out alerts, protect families in the home. If there's fentanyl that is affecting communities. So it's worth listening. We all need to listen better, and I'm thankful I heard what I did. So I'm in favor of it.
Thank you.
Long-winded.
I have to note that actually the additional, the change was also less.
Yes, okay, good point. You meant 60,000 something, it's not. 66.
The amendment is 61,533 and the original we had set aside was.
Further comment? Favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution number 228 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan, title amend the staffing pattern entitled by grade schedule of public health.
Moving resolution number 228.
By Supervisor Campbell, second. Pedler, Ferguson, Hall, O'Brien, Clary, and Noland. Discussion. This is roll call.
Mr. Hanky,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler,
Yes.
Mr. Ferguson,
Yes.
Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
Yes.
Mr. Hogan, Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary, Mr. Wang,
Yes.
Mr. Rozell.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted, 4,208 yes, 482 absent. Resolution number 229 by Supervisors Campbell, Fedler, Skelly, Hogan, Clary, Roselle, Hall, Nolan, titled Standard Workday and Reporting Resolution.
Moving resolution number 229.
Moved by Supervisor Campbell, second. Fiddler. Hall. O'Brien, Wilson, Clary, and Nolan. Discussion. Ferguson.
Everybody's on it. If you can, none of us
abstain, we can vote on our own ROA.
Otherwise, we won't have a quorum. I'll have to cast the deciding vote. I don't think there's. Further discussion? But thank you for keeping us honest. This is also a roll call.
Mr. Hanky,
Yes.
Mrs. Fedler, Mr. Ferguson,
Gladly, yes.
Mr. Mr. Shaw,
Yes.
Mr. Hall,
Yes.
Mr. Baker,
Yes.
Mr. Nolan,
Yes.
Mr. O'Brien,
Yes.
Mr. Hahn,
Yes.
Mr. Campbell,
Yes.
Mr. Skelly,
Yeah.
Mr. Hogan, Mr. Wilson,
Yes.
Mrs. Clary, Mr. Wang, Mr. Rozell.
Yes.
The resolution is adopted, 4,208 yes, 482 absent.
Okay, that is the end of the resolutions. We're on the supervisor's comments. This way we'll go Campbell first.
Okay, I think some of you have seen about Hudson River, Black River, and you've seen different notes about the budget, so I got a couple pages here to go through. It shouldn't take too long, but just things I think that need to be said, and if nothing else, just to spur a little interest and a little conversation on how we're gonna get to certain places in the future, because that's my biggest concern. So Hudson River, Black River Regulating District has reared its ugly head again. This time they are making an effort to bill us $119,000. This should never be a cost to Washington County nor the other 4 counties they charge. We are in the process of meeting with them in hopes of making it not be a county liability at all. The word has gone out that Great Meadow is going to be shuttered at the governor's wishes. It is a shame to see the great state of New York head down a path where they claim everyone is a victim and no one is accountable for their own actions. New York will pay an awful price to society and quality of life, many times over any monetary value. I know it is easy to blame a certain political party, but the reality is we now have a very gullible electorate voting for the demise of their very own quality of life. They will notice it in due time. The emotional, mental, and fiscal costs will be greater than any of us can imagine right now. I've spoken before about government in New York leading the charge on demise of the family. It is even far worse when it gets broken down to the total loss of structure in the entire life cycle. Our schools do not allow our kids to be kids. Children are now faced with concepts that we have personally never had to process as kids, so we don't readily see the harm being done. Lack of parents, school structure, and the instability of our churches and civics groups have taken away the backbone of our communities. Government cannot make up for the actual involvement of families with their children and all the effort that goes with the adage, it takes a village. Government at the indulgence is too expensive and also not very good at it. We need to demand better representatives with not just compassion, but an overabundance of wisdom to go with it. Compassion alone won't do any good, nor will wisdom alone. We need both. Governing is hard. We need people that work at it and set the tone for people to demand more of themselves along with self-discipline and self-respect. That is how we get a better outcome. We mentioned state mandates and why we are opposed to them. Stop and think how they get here to Washington County. State mandates are forcing us to do what we want no part of. Hence, they are mandates.
What are truly important are the things we must do on our own. Sheriff Patrol, highways, they are actually mandated because we know they are necessary. In fiscal crisis, we can cut those however we want. That just ruins our quality of life. We can't cut the mandates. That gets me to the forming of the 2025 budget. We are near a $3.5 million deficit to fill before I even see the budget requests or have clarification of what the state did to us in their budget they just passed. Our financials have been great coming out of COVID. A lot to do with the one-time funding that I'm very proud of this board spending in areas of need. Medicaid, healthcare, pension, and workers' comp had this list and are a direct result of state policy. I have let our department heads know that we need to cut 3% from our net cost to not override the 2% tax cap. It is very early in the process, but we all realize bad news doesn't get better with time. Looking forward to working with everyone to get where we need to be fiscally. Nothing like a good challenge. We're going to be rolling up our sleeves on this one. So anybody that's got any ideas and how they want to get there, I'd love to hear them, and we'll move forward. Thank you. Cost there would be the actual, it'd be the same. Well, that's really what we care about here.
Hey, further comment? Mr. Paul?
I just wanted to thank Mr. Campbell for moving resolution number 219, resolution I was going to move. The computer it makes me look like I'm sleeping, but I'm really not. I was awake. I could have done it right. Just wanted to point that out. It didn't slip by me.
I'm in Brendan's own override, so you'll have to forgive me.
Yes. But on a more
I was
serious,
gonna do them all.
yeah, he was trying, yeah. No, but on a serious note, I think that we're all here aware of the catastrophe that has been caused by Great Meadow Correctional Facility being announced to be closed on November 6th. Speaking for my community and my community only, although I know it affects all the communities around us here in Washington County. Experience knowing that you are taking a community and out of that community. The people are going to be displaced by that. Mainly younger working families that when they leave the community, same people that volunteer for our rescue squads, they volunteer for your fire departments, they work with your youth programs, types of things at school. You're taking part of your fiber out of your community. So in the end, what we end up with are senior citizens who are already on fixed incomes to try to balance town's budgets and do all the other services that are needed. I think it was a plan that sorry, I apologize. I don't think it was a really thought out plan. I think it was made because of just numbers and numbers alone. So I wish there was a way that the governor could reconsider this and take a look at the impact it has on the entire community and the surrounding areas. It's not just Fort Ann. I know that the county board of supervisors is on top of it, but just for those that may be listening, don't realize it, it affects all those immediate towns around us. It affects Kingsbury, it affects Granville, it affects Argyle, it affects Fort Ann, it affects Whitehall, Dresden, Putnam. It goes up into Essex County. It affects Warren County. It affects Rensselaer County residents. It affects Saratoga County residents. So this is not just restricted. But then when you have businesses that are going to be hurt tremendously by this, small mom and pop operations, and it just seems that a good study wasn't done on the reason to do it, and they were looking at it strictly because they can't fill the cells based on what their policies are with the arrest and then release. And I think that's all I have to say on that. I just hope that the state honors their commitment and they do the best they can to find jobs for these individuals that are being displaced. You have some families that have both members that work at the prison. You have civilian employees, for lack of a better word, up there that are clerks or whatever, that are going to be displaced, that don't probably have the luxury of going to another facility to be placed. once again, I go back to the core of what it actually does to the integrity of a town when you take those individuals that do all these support activities on a volunteer basis and you take them out of the communities. You're taking adults away from being able to work with children to help develop them in sports and those types of things, as well as educational needs. Yeah, it's going to hit 40 and hard, obviously, because it's located in 40. But when you look at the money that they're still putting in and have put in millions of dollars recently in that prison, and they still have contracts they're looking to fulfill, it doesn't make sense that we could waste taxpayers' dollars like that on the other side of the coin as well. So thank you for entertaining my comments. It hits real personally when the facility's in your town and it's going to have a detrimental impact on it. For all the other towns around it have employees that work there that are going to have to deal with the same, some of the. Thank you, Chairman.
Yeah, getting back to the original comment Brian had mentioned, the Black River Regulatory Commission, was it 170,000?
40 and we got a 17% decrease, but we were supposed to have 100% decrease. Last year, they made us pay it because they said we had a contract. Right now, we have no contract. They're suggesting that we owe it. We're not in complete belief that we owe them anything. It never should have been our bill, is my opinion, from the get-go. But this is a case where somebody didn't pay their taxes, and this is a letter from the regulating district. It's not anything more than that. So without a contract, we're going to try to get together with the 5 counties and go about it together to not pay this bill because we don't believe it's ours.
What is the total operating budget for the Blackwater Regulatory Commission? Does that been paying this bill for years and years, haven't we? Seems like it's been 15, 20 years we've been paying.
No, it's been 2 terms. I can't remember what the lengths of the contracts were. So it happened when I was here and we fought it like hell then, and we won some small battles. We just didn't win the war.
But it's a small percentage, isn't it?
What percentage of what?
Of their total budget, this 117,000?
Yes, it just is not necessary to be on any county. It's where both parties send their people that they want to move out to pay them. And they're both guilty of it. And
No, I'm just curious what the amount was for the
it's a
budget.
huge
How
salary.
big?
There will be over $2 million in salaries in about 3 years for about 20 people. It doesn't make any sense. And all it does is it keeps the water from flooding Albany and keeps salt water south of Poughkeepsie. So why is Warren, Washington, Saratoga, Rensselaer, and Albany paying the bill?
Well, probably because my grandfather and great-grandfather said that the Hudson River dried up in the summertime around the early 1900s. And this water system was put in so that all the mills could function, and they designed it so that there was always water in the Hudson River. That's what started this. Besides the flooding, and the flooding was caused a lot of damage in Saratoga and Washington County. I'm not disagreeing with you, but what I'm saying is the point is there was a purpose behind it, and it did benefit us tremendously.
What I'm saying is the big benefit is to the state of New York, not to Washington County.
Oh, yeah,
The state
yeah.
of New York actually put money in the budget to do it, knowing that they would force us to pay an extra year.
But
that
my
they were
point is,
able to recoup.
you're missing my point, which is there was a benefit to Washington County when it was all done. Well, if all those paper mills had to shut down because there was no water,
How many of them are there left?
well, Finch Pine is there. The one across the street, are they shut down now? Was it used to be International?
It's
The
very
purpose,
minimal. what we-
I'm not disagreeing with you, Brian. I was just pointing out there was a reason for it. And it did benefit Washington County at one time. And really, $117,000 is one person on the top end of our payroll for Washington County, or 2 people on the low end. So, I mean, we aren't talking big money here. But I do agree with you that it needs to be corrected, and I encourage you to keep working on it. I'm just trying to explain to the rest of the supervisors this did benefit Washington County years ago, big time.
Take it one part further. It was not our bill at all until the groups decided they didn't have to pay taxes. That basically it was the hydroelectric power companies that were paying it. They did win in court. That's how the settlement got to us. The state didn't want to pay it, demanded it to the 5 counties. It came here at the time, and we even looked if we should make the actual townships that were on the Hudson pay it. But being a board of supervisors, we're smarter than that and wouldn't hurt our other towns. So that's how it got to this process.
Right.
But
I'm
then,
not disagreeing with
then the
anything.
state decided they would pay it, and they put in enough money to pay the number it was at. And 2 years ago, we had a meeting here with our local representatives where one representative spoke up and made us aware that, oh, it was all taken care of. It wouldn't come back to bite us, that it was all that needed to do. And the only reason we had brought them here was because our former attorney, Mr. Wicks, showed us that the language in that bill always kept us in liability, and that had to be changed for what they had done to actually work. So I'm sure there was a lot of misinformation between those higher people than us, and they had a true belief that it was fixed. Brought it to their attention purposely to change that, and now they're coming to us and say, oh, we thought we had fixed it, but now they want to send us a bill. So it's our due diligence to make sure it's not our bill, because it never should have been. That's where I'm at.
And Mr. Nolet, do you have something to add on the topic?
I just also wanted to share with Mr. Shaw that while our number seems small, the 5 county assessment is $3.3 million on a district that this year had a $3 million tax burden that's now to zero because they're now tax exempt and not paying taxes. And they have a $1.2 million new revenue stream. So that's a $4.2 million swing to their benefit in their budget, and still impose a $3.3 million assessment on the 5 counties that were told it would be zero. So I just want to make sure that some of the numbers are out there. And I did share with the board this morning, if you check your emails, I responded to an email that was sent and provided you with the 2 sections of law that they say drives the assessment formula. And with their they pass a 3-year budget, and I provided that to you as well. So it's just some information to chew on, as it's as much the principle of the thing as it is the financial aspect. So I mean, it's a twofold thing. We were told it would be zero, and then you have a $4.2 million positive swing and still assess $3.3 million to the 5 counties. As they say, the math isn't mathing. Just something for you guys to chew on as you move forward in the process.
Thank you, Mr. Nolet. Any other supervisors' comments? Mr. Baker.
I'd like to thank the chairman, vice chair, and public safety for all their assistance with a chemical spill in Granville. As a new supervisor, it was a bit overwhelming who to talk to, how to talk to them, and the advice I received from the county was tremendous. Thank you.
Supervisor, you did a pretty good job rodeoing that too. The spills are always a wildly tactical situation. I've been in many of them. And
It was definitely a learning process.
you guys did well. Mr. Hahn.
I just want to add to Supervisor Hall's comments about Great Meadow. I think everybody knows that was my home for 23 years, and
You may want to rephrase that.
thank you.
On the outside.
Not full time. So
Place of employment.
yes, it was my place, and that place is like a family. Everybody keeps talking about how many jobs. I always go to the thought that it's not just a job. This is affecting probably 650 to 700 families, not including the community organizations and businesses that are going to be negatively impacted by it. And the fact that the governor put this out as to the media first before even letting the employees digest that was extremely disrespectful to the state employees. I guess I don't have any respect for that. That's all I have. Thank you.
Just a public safety reminder, a lot of public works going on along the Route 22 up through Putnam, as we know, with the power line project and other road work going on throughout the county. So just remind everybody that take their time, be patient, allocate 2 hours to come to Fort Edward if you're coming this way. But more importantly, there's been a lot of close calls that I'm aware of as well along those construction sites. So watch out for yourself, watch out for others so you can go home safely. Thank you.
Yesterday, Senator Jake Ashby came to Salem to see what our community is all about.
You lost?
What's that?
Was he lost?
No, we had a great day, but he was getting his messages were tinged while we were in the Washington County cells of the jail. And he was getting the notifications of closure. And so, the courthouse is now a thriving activity, although it didn't look like it yesterday because lunch, learn, and play was at school. We're getting ready for the alfresco dinner Saturday night. As you all know, the Washington County Jail moved from Salem to here, and it was awful. Looking back on it, I mean, restaurants closed, pharmacies closed. It was a whole devastation to the town of Salem. Although as my husband was an EMT, to take inmates out of the third floor of the jail in a chair that was impossible to navigate down through, and the lead on the bars, and it was time. It was time for it to close, and it did. And it was a transition, and it's bittersweet because tomorrow night we'll sit out and have an alfresco dinner out in the side yard looking at the jail, which is still can't be used. It's a part of the building that will never serve anything else other than storage and memories and maybe paranormal activity. But that being said, it doesn't mean we need to sit still. We need to advocate for the families at Great Meadow. And now's the time. How do we keep them in their homes? How do we keep them in Fort Anne? How do we Whitehall? What opportunities can we give them? It's a terrible, terrible transition and closure. But we have a big job to do. And our job is to work towards our communities and families. And so hopefully out sooner than later. So lemonade is sometimes tough to make, but if you don't start making it, nothing will happen. So.
Mr. Roselle.
Well, on a brighter note, in Whitehall, we've got 100-year anniversary for the Whitehall Elks. This weekend, there's parade and celebrations all weekend, and there's a function at the museum, which is quite interesting. That'll be this evening. So just brighter note of what's happening in Washington County. That's something somebody can go have a beer with, I guess.
What time is Sasquatch gonna appear?
Sasquatch doesn't come until September, Brian.
Okay, he can't come. Okay.
Okay, anybody else? All right, I got a couple things. The prison breaking all of us. I think I've got 16 or 17 families involved, directly affected in the town of Argyle. It was something we hired a public relations firm to help us with earlier. To little avail. We also took as part of our advocacy package, we talked about it to all our legislators. Everybody said the issue was staffing. When I took the conservation officer's exam, back before the crust of the earth had cooled. They gave that, they gave the state police, they gave the CO's exam all at the same time. There were over 5,000 people that took the CO's exam. It was a very desirable job. Good benefits. A lot of people wanted to do it. Now they can't get staffing. The staffing has fallen apart in the past 10 years. There's a reason for that. The big reason is the way that the state treats the staff. They're really treated as second-class citizens as far as I'm concerned. And that's coming from a perspective of a past union president that, also was, in with the COs at that time. They were together with the conservation officers. Don't solve a staffing problem by closing prisons and putting people elsewhere. You solve the staffing problem by solving the staffing problem. This never should have happened. I will be very unpopular here with some of you. Brian's talked about the budget a little bit. I'm going to advocate passing a local law to override the tax cap this year. I've advocated that every year. I've done it every year since the tax cap came in the town of Argyle, just so I can put a paragraph in there saying if we have to override, have to go higher than the percentage, it's all the fault of the state mandates. I'd like to put that in there in this one too. However, I'm very afraid that work as hard as we will on the budget, there's pieces falling out of that state budget every day that no one has heard about or knows about. I'm afraid we're going to get our budget done, get it passed, and have something happen, we'll be over just because of that. So I would recommend passing a tax cap override just as a prophylactic measure. And I maybe don't mean that as a pun. We have seen some hubris on our national political level, up to and including assassination attempt. I'm hoping that's going to ratchet down the political discourse. It seems to have made people a little bit more civil to each other. I hope we can all practice that. And I was going to make a big point about that if I had my typical speaker from Argyle here, but he didn't show up, so I didn't get a chance to do that. But hopefully we'll all keep it on our mind to call out any of the intrinsic nastiness that seems to inevitably arrive. We have tried to do anything we could think of to deal with our employees here, to make life better for them. One thing that came up was the issue about going to lunch and how you couldn't really go away for lunch because you didn't have time and everything. And it was suggested that maybe we'd put some food trucks out front. We did that. That was quite a project for our county administrator's office, getting that coordinated and done. I wanted to thank them. They did a really yeoman's job on getting that organized. I also wanted to thank Ralph Metcalf. I keep blowing Ralph's last name. Metcalf from Building and Grounds. He really honchoed getting them set up out there, getting tables and chairs set up, and coordinating the power and getting the signs that DPW printed, put up. Bottom line is it really came out well. There were a lot of people there. Not only did the employees seem to like it, but the food truck vendors thought they were very successful. One guy even got booked for a wedding or something down the line here. I think we've had another person wanting to apply to it now. It's a good thing. I mean, and I think that when we're talking about staffing, just doing things that indicate we're listening to the people and appreciate them. Because it's hard. I mean, municipal government, we can't show them we appreciate them by giving them bonuses and things like that. We can't pay for them like we ought to be paying for them. We just can't. Brian's made that infinitely clear that we can't. But things like this we can do. Anybody thinks of anything that, is an office hygiene, is a short-term thing or, change we can make simply like that, let us know. Great kudos to the people that made that happen. I thank you very much. And finally, in the town of Argyle, tomorrow is the Pull for a Cure, the Carl Lufkin Memorial Tractor Pull thing going on. It's a big event. There's all kinds of vendors there. There's all kinds of, goes everything from kids on garden tractors to unlimiteds. I urge you all to come on over and have something to eat and watch some of the tractor pulls and have a good time. Anybody else? Mr. Shaw.
By order of the chairman of the Washington County Board of Supervisors, Robert Henke, I declare this meeting adjourned and stand adjourned until August 16th at our next regular board meeting. Adjourned.